Hey folks, 6 o'clock on Saturday morning here in Sydney, and if you're not in Australia, the future looks bright. So, back to the splurging as ever, and you see I've added a reactor thing. If you've been following along with the other, I've added a reactor instrument, which is the polyplex, just for a bit of percussion to play off the DFAM. Maybe, we'll see. And I'm going to start with the DFAM again today. And I was actually before this playing with another tune, and this kind of sound came up, so I thought I might start with it. The only thing is that click. Was it? Okay, pitch to. Because the thing is, I don't mind that click right now because it's a splurge, but I just know that it might end up really bugging me. I'm just not going to worry about it. And I'm going to turn up the speed a bit. Right. Let's go. Ah. It's going to stop this, as I keep forgetting to do. There we go. Okay. I think I need the click for this. Okay. So it went on a bit longer there. It's very hard to do short splurges with this thing. Okay. Now we find out if I've actually done this in an actual key. Rather than some kind of weird microtonal thing. Anyway. Oh, C, there we go. If you've been following along with a lot of the splurges, you'll see I do a lot of the same things in terms of how I kind of start, but I do kind of change it up bit by bit. The reason for that is I'm trying to reduce the number of decisions I have to make at all times. Because, you know, the music production process, the creative process is essentially a very long list of very small decisions. And the more decisions you can make up front, like, okay, this is how I'm going to do things for the next week. And I wouldn't suggest you always do the same thing like for the rest of your life. But here's how I'm going to do things for the next week. And you decide that out in the studio. That reduces the number of decisions you have to make. So, yeah, that's why you'll see me doing a lot of the same things. Hello? What's that? Something weird going on. Let's try a different sound. Yeah. That's strange. I can hear something in my head, and I'm struggling to find it. So, do the click this time. Hello? I'm going through a phase of liking parts that don't go in 8s, and this isn't that different. I'll just choose this one because it's just going in. I mean, it kind of is going in 8s. What I mean by it's 16s. That they in some way kind of change. So probably something, basically not everything being the same length. That's what I'm trying to say. So some things will be 6 bars long. Sometimes things will be 10 bars long. So this is kind of like a 24 bar pattern rather than a 16 bar pattern. Tell you what I feel like doing right now. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to use something I haven't used for a while actually. Hopefully I'm signed in. Yes. What can I use? I'm going to put out the different out. Let's try different. I should go for something that is actually lines. Let's go for trash. Right, going super fast at 160. But what I like about this is the Moog part is that it is suggesting half time of that. So I want to have a bit of a play with that. That's not what I wanted. Come on. Maybe it was that. That's it. Just want a little bit of a hint of the double time. One of the things you want to think about when you're putting parts in is making your life easier. So when I was playing those patterns in on the kick, the new kick here, there was a couple of things I wanted to do, but then I realised when I tried them, because I hadn't thought it through obviously, that they were playing at the same time as that Moog thing that I put in, the defam bassy thing, and I knew that was going to cause issues at some point in the future. So because it doesn't really matter at this point, I did a kick part that didn't play at the same time as the Moog, thereby making my life easier at some point in the future, if I choose to take this forward. And this is why it's really important to not like overly focus on what you want, like what this idea that you've got in your head, right? Because there's loads of ideas that come into your head, and you know, just because you have an idea doesn't mean it's a good one. So you know, at this early stage, I'm not like attached to anything in particular, so I'm going to make sort of simple decisions that I know are going to make it much easier in the future, because you know, having those two, I mean, not only does it work better like musically, but also in terms of what happens later on in the process when I'm mixing it. If I give each of those parts space, then it's just going to like save me a bunch of headaches in the future, and everyone else when they listen to it. So let's do this. Okay, I'm hearing that same part higher up. Let's move this. Start that here. What was it? Oop. Hi, dry desert. Dessert. By the way, if anyone's watching and they want to ask me questions, then please go ahead. To be a different sound. Okay. Well, I don't know why this has always decided to open up like that. It's very frustrating. There we go. I don't know. Let's try that. Let's go Blade Runner. Okay. going so fast that I think I want 2 bars in. Give myself time to get my head straight. I'm probably going to play some wrong notes here. This is something I have to practice. Anyway, I'm just going to play whatever happens. Right. Right. What I'm going to have to do is... Actually, first of all, let's just fix my mistake. I do like mistakes. Actually, I mean, let's see. Maybe it will be a good mistake. Let's have a listen. Now we've got some slight tuning issues with the defamp, but I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. So what I'll probably have to do is tune the other parts, but I don't care. So, at this point anyway. Right. So, Dry Dessert is asking a question about The Leap, which is the program that's starting very soon, in about a day. So, there's a lot of people in The Leap who are far away from world-class artists. In fact, I would say that everybody, not everybody, that's not true at all. the 90% of people are not world-class artists, but they definitely could be world-class artists. I wouldn't even call myself a world-class artist. So yes, basically there aren't world-class artists in the Leap. In fact, a lot of people, as long as you basically know how to, I'm not going to teach you how to download Ableton and how Ableton works. So as long as you can work a DAW, or you can work whatever you choose to make music, and you can play a guitar or play a piano, then you've got all you need. The reason I make that requirement that you're not a complete beginner is because we're not going to be covering the stuff where you don't even know anything about making music. So if you've made a tune, or a few tunes, then that's absolutely fine. In terms of the technical aspects, what you want to question, whether you go for the Leap or not, is do you actually need to learn the technical aspects before you start making music? Because the way that the internet, what I call the music production industrial complex, teaches you is that you need to know all of this technical stuff before you become good. I learnt music, music theory, so not electronic music, but I wouldn't call music theory the technical aspects, because I had a musical training, so it was classical musical training, but I didn't have any knowledge when I started making music of how to actually produce music. I simply figured it out. And the problem is with starting with the technical aspects is that you think you need to know all of these thousands of different things to make good music. You don't. What you need to do first of all is you need to make lots of music, and that will show you the things that you want to improve on, because nobody can be good at everything in music production. It would take 20 lifetimes, and even then you wouldn't be brilliant at everything. So in the Leap, I essentially show you how to put your progress on turbocharge without an enormous focus on the technical aspects of making music. What I'm asking you to do, Dry Dessert, whether you go for the Leap or not, it's totally up to you, is to question the idea that you actually need all this technical training, okay? Because I've already said I'm not a world-class artist, but I certainly don't see myself as one anyway. But I got to a certain point, and I didn't do any technical training whatsoever in terms of the producing of the music. I simply figured it out. How? By making heaps and heaps of it. Okay, because it is amazing. We are taught by our industrial age education that we need to be taught all this stuff. You don't. This isn't brain surgery. This isn't heart surgery. This is making music. You can do it in a much more intuitive way, and you'll get much quicker results. And yes, at first, the music won't be any good. But even if you learn all the technical stuff, that's the case as well. Practice is the first thing that you need to do before getting all of this information that you can't use because it's not in muscle memory into your head. So I'll show you how to get much quicker at making music, make much faster progress without having to immediately fill your head with all this stuff that you might not need to know. Okay? So it's very hard for me to. So Seven Nation, hello Seven Nation. He's asking, or he or she is asking, the difference between Discover and Draft folders. So this is part of my automatic music machine, and it's hard for me to completely give you the full story, but essentially they are different stages of the creative process. So if you think about the creative process, and this is where a lot of people get messed up, is that, okay, if you think about the start of the creative process, right, it is what's called a divergent way of thinking, okay, well, not way of thinking, approach, where you just need to get stuff out without editing it. Yeah, just like it's about more. It's adding, just going, just throwing crap at a wall, basically. Yeah, and that is essential. If you edit yourself immediately, you won't ever get started, or you'll go really slow and get incredibly frustrated. You know, if the very first thing that you play, you go, this isn't good enough, then you play something else. Oh, this isn't good enough. Oh, this isn't good enough, right? You can't do that. You just got to let it out. So it's the divergent stage of the process. So the splurge, which is what I'm doing today, and discover is the first half of the process, which is divergent. And in discover, it's kind of like more splurging, but you're splurging with a starting point. So the ones that I choose to take forward of these splurges, I will do discover sessions on them, and that's really to discover what. And you know, this is a very kind of high level overview, but it's really to discover what the track wants to be, or what the song wants to be. Okay. You know, and there are specific things about that we'll be here all day if I explain it. Okay. So that is those two parts are the divergent part of the process. When you figured out what the track actually wants to be in your head and partly, you know, coming out of the speakers, then you know where it's going. Yeah. And that point, it goes into draft, because you start drafting the music. Yeah. You're kind of writing your first draft. Then it goes into done, and then when it's in done, you that is like you get music into done that you're not going to release. Okay, when you've got that draft done, basically it goes into done. You leave it there for a while, at least 7 days, and then you decide if you want to release it, and then you do the last bit. Okay, so those are the stages: splurge, discover, draft, done, and then release. Okay, so hopefully that has clarified things a bit for you without me going too heavily into it. You know, at each stage of the process, there are specific things that we do in the automatic music machine to make sure that you don't second guess yourself and get unstuck. So British Stevie, hello Stevie. I don't know if you are still in Britain, but say hello to old Blighty for me if you are. Do you always stand up, not sit, when I write music? These days, yes, I do. I find that psychologically, being up and open rather than like this. I mean, say you were feeling really down, really sad, and really depressed. How do you know, what is your body doing? Well, maybe not like that, but you know, you're kind of like that, which is what sitting encourages. Whereas when you're standing up, I mean, obviously here I can't. I mean, I suppose I could have them up here, which would be better, but you know, I can't do it completely. Whereas when you're up, you're much more kind of open and positive. That's one reason. The other reason is that in general, sitting, I think, is a bad thing. I've heard people say it's the new smoking in terms of your health. So I prefer to stand up. But I do have this standing desk, which you won't be able to see because the camera's on it, but it goes down as well. So I can make this go down too. But obviously, then I wouldn't be able to reach my keyboards. So, so you're absolutely right. Dry Dessert. Dry Dessert says, I also think that thinking that you can or ought to front load know-how is a serious roadblock. That is, I couldn't have said it better myself. By front loading all of this learning, you are putting a bunch of massive obstacles in your place, because the being taught bit, the knowing it, you don't know it when you're taught it. You've just heard about it, right? The knowing it comes from practicing it. So if you watch 5,000 tutorials, right, without actually applying each of those things over and over again, not just once, but over and over again, you won't actually know it. You'll just have heard about it. So you'll have all of this stuff that you know about that you can't do. And this just creates this massive mountain to climb. So my approach, which works like gangbusters for people, you know, kind of all stages of their process, is about actually starting with what you know, doing what you can, and actually it's like accepting that you are where you are and practicing from that point, and actually finishing music no matter where you are, yeah, and then figuring out from that music what skills you want to develop, yeah, by practice. Yeah, so I'm not anti being taught music production. I am anti being taught music production outside of the context of finishing heaps of music, because it just doesn't work. Okay, you're just not going to get good that way. Yeah. And the other thing to say about the leap is that I do some kind of the other thing about the technical side, right? So that I just wanted to say as well is, like, if an alien came down from Mars, and and you said, okay, go and look at YouTube and tell me which part of making music is the most important. It's between idea generation, and I'm kind of randomly picking sort of different parts of the creative process. It's between idea generation, arrangement, mixing, and mastering. Oh, and let's say sound design, right? That alien would have the importance exactly the opposite way around. I am not saying that mixing and mastering aren't important. They absolutely are. But if I was to ask you, okay, you can only do one part of the music making process. This is just a thought experiment, right? You can only do one part of the music production process. Yeah. In order for you to say that you'd actually written this music, which part that I've just described, idea generation, arrangement, mixing, or mastering, which part would you do? And you still be able to say that you wrote the music? Would it be mastering? No. Would it be mixing? No. Would it be arranging? Probably not. You've got a bit more of it. It would be idea generation. So there is a priority order here in terms of the importance of the different bits of making music. If you look on the internet, most people are obsessed with the bits that are less important. How much stuff is there out there about idea generation? How much stuff is there about composition compared to all of the technical stuff? So, in my opinion, the music production industrial complex has got it exactly the wrong way around. Of course, mixing, mastering, those kinds of things are important, but they're not as important as the actual music. You don't want to spend your life polishing turds. Okay, it's not a good look. Okay, so back to the acting, as they say. There. I will come to your questions in a minute. Got some idea explosion takers here. How was it? that's going to be enough for me to listen to at a future date. So I've got a couple more questions. Let's just finish there. It's a very long splurge. Giving myself a bit of a listening nightmare in the future. Anyway, never mind. Alright. So I'm just going to bounce this out and answer the question. I'm going to call this. I have 2 streams running. How about that? Thank you, Michael. Apparently, for some reason, maybe it's the software glitch. Basically, I'm also streaming on February the 2nd. How strange. Thanks for letting me know, Michael. That's absolutely fantastic. I will sort that out. Right, what will we call this? Dual stream. There we go. Thank you. You've also given me a name. What was it? C something. Let's just call it C. And 160 stroke 80. I'll just call it 160. And I copy that. Save. And then. So. Seven Nation 2000 says, I struggle with not thinking about quality when splurging. I mean, we're not just randomly pressing keys, so where's the line, if that makes sense? So I get that question a lot. And in fact, I've created a splurge in service of that question. It's called the chimp splurge, and the rule is that you start with a part with a sound. So it could be like a bit, you know, a synth. If you haven't got a synth, it doesn't matter. You can just use a piano, or you could use a VST, and you literally do just randomly go, but you're recording it. Okay, and so you're recording the MIDI if it's a VST, the audio if it's not a VST, or you know if it's a piano, and you literally go like like that. In fact, I'll demonstrate it for you. I won't be able to demonstrate the chimp splurge now, but I will do one in the future. But basically, say. It's not really going to work with a kind of slow pad sound, but let me just hang on. I have saved this some night. Let me just save it, and then I can mess around. Okay, that's arcade. That's not what we want, D, but that'll do. Here we go. And you know, ideally it wants to be a sound that isn't like really slow attack. So what I would do is I would press record like this. Without a click track. And you basically pretend you're a chimpanzee. So you go like that for however long, okay? And what you do is, so you record that, and like ideally, if you're doing it on a VST, then you would then bounce that audio out, and you would use that audio, okay? And then what you do is you listen back to it, and you're actually listening for the starting point of an idea, okay? So you're kind of being forced to listen to this random pressing of keys for the starting point of an idea, and that's what you splurge on. And essentially you can use that same audio file for multiple different splurges, because in amongst that there's going to be stuff that you can use that will spark an idea. Okay, so first of all, the first thing to say is I would question the idea that you can't make music by randomly pressing keys, because you can. Obviously there has to be some intention at some point, but that's the first thing I would say. The other thing I would say is that if you're asking that question, that probably means you're not actually splurging. So what I might do is, so when you get, I mean, you might not, I don't know, but if you have like a synth like this, you can calibrate the knobs. Yep, so that they're kind of accurate in terms of where you're turning them. And in order to do that, what do they ask you to do? They ask you to turn the knobs all the way to the right and then all the way to the left. Yeah. And this is like, if you are struggling to not think about quality, then I would suggest you recalibrate yourself by turning your quality knob all the way to the left, i.e. just literally just let it go, like be random, just don't worry about it, just go the whole hog. I mean, what's the problem with that? Why not? Who's going to have to hear it? It doesn't matter. Apart from anything else, it's going to be a great training in doing something when it sounds terrible, moving forward when it sounds terrible, because even if you're writing a piece of music which is actually very good, at some point in that process you are going to think it's terrible. That is just a sure thing. I think there's maybe like one tune in my life that I've written that in the course of writing it I didn't think, oh god, this is terrible, right? Even though that tune is actually quite good. Right? So training yourself to keep making progress with something when you think it's terrible is an essential part of the process. So you might not come out with anything good, but you are recalibrating your qualityometer, and you're going that, and also you're kind of training yourself in moving forward even when you think something is terrible. Because at the end of the day, in any given moment, you can't be sure whether it's terrible or not. Right? And I'll tell you what else. When you let go of that need for everything to be brilliant or even half good at any moment, it just frees your experimentation, your curiosity, your fun, your speed. Everything becomes much smoother, much simpler, much easier. And I mean, it's not always easy. The struggle is an integral part of the process. But if you're struggling to not think about quality when splurging, then I would suggest you really do just let it go for a while. Even if everything that you make is actually terrible, it's going to really, really help you. So, excellent. So, yes, so Dry Dessert said, more or less, I still need to learn production aspects to make it pro. What does learn mean, Dessert? Does learn mean be taught? No. Learn means practice. Okay? Being taught is the optional one. The non-optional one is practice. I'm not saying don't be taught, but what people tend to do is that they get taught and they don't practice, or they get taught most of the time and do virtually zero practice, i.e. don't finish any music. What does practice mean when you're making music? It means finishing music, right? And the problem is with being taught first is that it actually stops you from finishing music, because you've got all of these things in your head. Yeah. So when you say I still need to learn production aspects to make it pro, yes, but you don't necessarily need to be taught them. I haven't been taught anything about production. I have learnt it from doing. Do to learn, don't learn to do. Or at least have it in that order. Okay? Anyway, enough rambling for now. I've been on for about an hour. Twice, it seems. There's been 2 Mike Mondays on YouTube. What a terrible thought. So I'm back again tomorrow, half an hour later tomorrow. So I will see you then. Hope you found this useful. Happy splurging, happy producing, and as ever, onwards and upwards.